Again, welcome to Chainbreakers. I'm Emiko Conklin, one of the founders of Chainbreakers. And tonight we are just having a conversation just around communication between, males and females. And we just wanted to bring this platform to you guys this evening. We have 4 guests that will join us this evening. And since we're talking about communication, we're talking about relationships. Again, my name is Emiko Conklin, and I am single, dating, never been married is my relationship status.
Hey, I'm Antoinette Weaver, co-founder of Chainbreakers. I am divorced, not currently dating, and happily single.
Hello, guys. My name is Crystal. I am divorced and single, and I'm like Antoinette, happily single.
Hello, my name is Lance Soders. I am divorced and just enjoying life.
Well, I guess I'll hold it down for the married crew. Jason Thibodeau, how you doing? Married 14 years, and let's have some fun. Let's see where this goes.
I don't have my mic on off mute, but my name is Shawnee. I'm 48, single, never married, and yeah, the prospects are scary.
Shuddy, that's definitely another conversation that we can definitely have later. I was married for 22 years and been divorced for 5 years, so it's a different world out there. And so, as Emika said, we want to discuss today communication in relationships. Jason recently posted on his Facebook page, do women really want to know the truth? And if we want men to be honest, do we need to hear the negative things? Do we need to hear the critiques? Do we really want to hear how they're feeling? And so we think that's an important conversation to have, because just through that stream, I found that men and women were truly divided. And so I felt like it would be a good time to talk this out and have perspectives from our panelists. And so we represent the married, the single, the divorced. And so I think hopefully we can offer some good perspectives on that topic. Okay, so who would like to kick things off?
I would like to say that the topic statement alone is triggering for me, because where it's putting him in a position where he's responsible for her because it's she. It makes it about her, and it excludes, and to me that also excludes him from the conversation. Like, where is his ownership of his delivery of said statements?
Very good point. That was actually my take from it too, as well, Shawnee. When the men were saying no, women really don't want to hear it. They don't want to, I know better. I know to keep this my safe ground and not tell the truth. And my first reaction was, well, why, if we're in relationships and we're in marriages and we love each other, why can't we open a dialogue and you tell me things that are negative or not necessarily something that's going to be pleasing to me, but I will receive it in a negative way. So I felt that was a big issue, and that symbolized, a breakdown in the relationship. So again, that's why I thought it's important to have this conversation.
If I can chime in, I would prefer to know, be open with me, be transparent, let me know what's going on, whether it's negative or not, so I can make the decision what I want to do from there. Because on my end, I'm going to try to be as honest as I can be. Of course, you don't have to lay out everything, but some important things that may affect me, I would like to know. Just tell me, even if it's ugly, bad, whatever it is, just tell me so I can be able to make a choice to move, further.
Hey, well, I tell you what, I'll pretense it like this. So yeah, it was my post. And it was talking about, do women really want to hear? And basically it was just the negative comments, how we as your spouse or man, your relationship partner may view something negative about you. Do you really want to hear what it is, whether it's how you dress, what you say, how you carry yourself, anything like that? The interesting part about that is, and I can't remember who I said this to, but about 70 to 80% of the women that actually commented on that post were single or not married. And if you go back and look at the men that actually did say something on that post, about 80% of them were married. And I think that's also where you get that divide, right? So you have all these ladies that are like, yes, I want to know, just talk to me, tell me, express yourself, let me know where you really stand. And you see most of the dudes are like, hey, player, that's not a good look. You can do things, but look at what these ladies are actually saying, and don't fall for the trap. And the reason I say that is because, yeah, it was definitely a trap set on that page by a lot of the ladies. Y'all won't admit it because y'all don't want to be accountable for that trap, but it was definitely a trap stated and laid out on that page. And if you look at almost every single one of those comments that the lady said, they were like, yes, I want to know. But watch how you say, yes, I want to know. But make sure the message is delivered like this, or, whatever that particular case may be. And to me, I believe, like Lance was saying, Lance brought up some very good pointers on that thread as well, talking about how we should be able to communicate, and that's true. However, you can't have side rules that come along with that, because if there is something negative that needs to be said, chances are there's a level of frustration that may come along with that. So how do you tell us how to deliver that particular message when it does not always apply to y'all, when y'all deliver that message to us, when it's something that we don't do, right? See, I'm gonna go ahead and get it kicking real quick.
Good. Excellent points. Yeah, I have a retraction, but I'm gonna give someone else a chance.
Now, I'll just chime in too. I think sometimes even when we're just talking about communication, or, having those, sometimes we might call them those tough conversations, or wanting to tell the truth, or how we say it too, sometimes it goes down to trust too. It's like, do you really trust that what you say is going to be here? Is it going to be heard? Because a lot of times I think with communication, we say something and the way it's processed in the person who's hearing it is completely different than what was said. So how does that communication go back and forth? And are you in a trusting enough relationship that you can have those tough, conversations, and you can try to, you might get defensive a lot of times, and then can you have the conversation to block, what I'm saying? So we can start to unblock those things that are blocking us. Because a lot of times when we get defensive, we stop listening to the message, or we listen to the tone. Like, I even, as a coach, I tell my kids, listen to what I'm saying. Don't always listen to the tone. What is the message behind it? And I think that's one of the breakdowns, in communication as well, is just even having that trust factor in that, especially if we're talking about, sometimes in marriage, trust might have been broken, or sometimes if you're single and you're out here dating, or you're single and you're not dating, it's like trust is one of the biggest things, to overcoming that hurdle of dating.
All right. Well, to the question, I was kind of biased. I think some women do want the truth, and I think some women don't want the truth, the honest truth. You hear a lot of women state that I want you to be honest with me. I want you to tell me everything about myself. And as I was reading those posts and things, I was wondering, like, what's the emotional stability of the individuals that's really speaking? Because a lot of times when I was listening, I was hearing a lot of hurt, a lot of hurt pain, right? A lot of hurt points. And they were responding based on things they've been through. So it was making me wonder, if you really want the honest truth, I got to first understand emotionally, where are you at? And then if I'm your man, I also got to understand, are you fragile when you take information that I give to you, or are you a woman who likes it blunt? Give it to me, daddy, come on. Like, tell me how it is. Right? It depends on what you're dealing with. So I think as far as starting out, that's what I was thinking about when the question first came about.
Good facts, good points. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those women, it sounded like they were coming, and that's the feeling I got as well. I don't want to say that's what they were doing, but that's the feeling that I got, is that a lot of them were coming from a place of hurt. And personally, I think that's where you also saw a lot of those married men chime in. That's like, hey, don't fall for that trap. Because if you're coming from a place of hurt, you have to be realistic with yourself. And it doesn't matter if you're a lady or a man in this instance, right? If you're coming from a place of hurt and you're telling somebody to be open and honest with you, male or female, I don't think it matters. You got to ask yourself, am I really open to hearing what this person has to say to me?
Yeah.
Because if you're not willing to, or if you're not open to what they have to say to you, you're about to have a fight on your hands, because you're asking somebody to be honest with you. And as soon as they be honest with you, you're going to attack them. and that's going to ensue, change the course of your relationship possibly. And that, like I said, even though we were talking about ladies, I mean, that goes both ways from that standpoint, especially if you're in a place of hurt.
Yes, I totally agree. I think how we receive information definitely comes from our background and what we have in our backpacks. What are we carrying around? The hurt that and I did see a lot of comments where women were taking it very personally. And I think that is because of their experiences. I think that there is commonly a distrust between men and women, specifically in our community because of our histories. A lot of women have been cheated on, they've been abused, they've been left. And so they come from a place of hurt, and it comes across as anger and aggression. So I definitely could see that along the post. And again, that's another reason why I felt that this was so important, because I mentioned earlier that I'm divorced and currently not dating, and I'm intentionally not dating at this time because I'm working on me. I walked into that marriage at 18. I was with him since I was 13. And so I went through a lot in my lifetime, and more so a lot in my relationship. And I wanted to make sure that I was total and complete before I stepped into that situation again, because I don't want another man to suffer the consequences of that previous relationship. I want to be open and give him a fair chance. And so, but I believe when I speak, I can only speak for myself, but I truly do want to hear what my man has to say. One, because if I'm in a relationship with him, I think his voice is important. And if he isn't sharing with me, then his concerns or his frustrations, then I can adjust. And so I'm all about those difficult conversations. I always say I may not necessarily like what you have to say, but I'm going to listen to what you have to say, and I'm going to process it and act accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you know what I can appreciate what I just heard right there, and what I do not hear, what a lot of modern day adults in relationships is accountability. I think there's a major lack of that. I know there's some people who hate Kevin Samuels, but I mean, one of the things that I hear that he talks about a lot of is accountability for the decisions that you have made and the ones that you're making at this particular point. And I mean, that's definitely an adult decision, is to work on yourself. And I think that's where a lot of us in relationships make that mistake. I've had people who think that I'm so darn strong or whatever else when it comes to my relationship past when I was on the dating scene. And the only thing I can say about that is because I was an only child. So I was used to being by myself, where a lot of people are not. So if you're going from relationship to relationship to relationship, then you're packing that baggage and you're actually punishing the next person for the stuff that the person before you did wrong. You know what I mean? Subconsciously, you're not trying to probably, but you're definitely doing it. And so when you turn around and you ask that person, hey, be honest with me, what do you think? Does this dress make me look fat? No, baby, you was fat before you put it on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how do you deliver certain messages, if you're already coming from a place of hurt or you're packing that baggage? So, I respect that, definitely, that, you're working on yourself. And I think all of us need to.
If I can say something real quick in regards to the topics that are being presented to the woman and in her response. Okay, so like I asked a lot of married men at my job this question as to his opinion. Does he believe that women want the truth? And 1 year, 6 year, 21 years, 30 years, the answers all came back the same, is that, they don't feel that's the truth, that she wants the truth, and that they're going to pick and choose arguments, modify the truth, omit, and other things. But they also all said the first thing that came out of their mouth was things that are under her control. So far as like how she cuts her hair, what clothes she's wearing, and can she take the truth as to, no, that's not a flattering dress on you, or I want your hair long, but you cut your hair short. Those are also superficial. Did anybody else notice that? Like, it's about her appearance. It's not about how we're raising the kids or where we're living, those types of truths. What about that?
Well, I mean, I think that you should be open to having those conversations as well. I mean, really and truly, that particular post that I had was a copy and a paste. And when I copied and pasted it, basically I succeeded at what I was trying to do, and that was to get some type of dialogue going, right? I do that quite a bit, not necessarily poking at any particular gender or relationship status or anything like that. But every now and again, I get bored and I was like, you know what, we need to have a conversation. Let's get some things going. So if you picked up on it was just mostly appearance and everything else, I mean, I'm not going to deny it. It may have been, I got to go back and read the post again. But I think they was just talking more or less high level. I mean, it can definitely go a lot deeper in terms of that particular hard conversation that you're asking from your man, you know, and when you're asking him to be honest, because honestly, he may not like your parenting style. I know my wife doesn't always like mine. Hell, we get into it from time to time, you know, because I am a dad's dad, as I like to say. Both my parents are from the country. So I am a total disciplinarian. Antoinette, you know this as well, you know, when y'all used to work together. And the irony is that a lot of it has rubbed off on her to where even when she goes to work, most of the schools that she works at, she becomes the disciplinarian at that school. She'll teach kindergarten and have fifth graders brought to her class because the teacher can't take care of it, you know. So if I'm like overly vocal and a disciplinarian and you're soft-spoken, that might make for a hard conversation if little Junior ain't acting right, because I'll be on you like, hey, when I'm not around, I'm gonna need you to go put a foot in his butt. Not wait till I get home and tell me. That way I can come in like a wrecking ball every single time. You know, I'm gonna need for you to go ahead and do the old school thing, tear his butt up, and then when I get home, he gonna catch round two. You know, old school ways from the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. You know, because it definitely takes a community. But you know, yeah. I mean, that conversation can always get a lot deeper. I mean, like I said, it was just a copy and a paste, so it may have been kind of high level talking about, you know, looks, appearance, or whatever, how someone carries himself. But if you start looking at how someone carries himself and their posture, it could definitely go deeper.
So was the question more based, it sounds like from Shani, and what I took from it, it sounded more like you said it was, does she want honest communication? Can she handle that honest communication? So are we focused on that as far as how to? Should we talk about how to give her that honest communication, or are we just focused on this is the point? She don't like honest communication, and that's why we got to focus on why she don't want honest communication.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely dig into both. I think Shani did make a good point. Is the belief that we don't want certain honest conversations? Like, do we not want to hear things about our physical appearance, or are we looking at conversation about, like Jason said, parenting, or, you know, where we want to live, you know, those important topics? You know, does it vary from depending on the what is being discussed?
Okay. But I know from a male's perspective, after I got let me put it like this. Once I was divorced is when I started to reflect, and I started to look at some of the things from try to understand more from a female's perspective other than a male's perspective. And talking about what you guys are talking about, I think if we can figure out a way to utilize the 5 love languages, when you talk about being honest with our mate, right? What is that love language, and how to kind of parallel that thing together. When I bring it together, now I can present it to her, or vice versa, she present it to him. And I think we can help to come to a common ground in building up our communication with one another, where it is an honest communication at all times. So I think that's important as far as trying to bridge that gap that we have when it comes from men and women. Because most of the time, men, we don't like to. It makes us feel uneasy. It makes us not feel comfortable. Like you be asking us, why? Now, many times, listen, I took you to the mall. I took you to the movies. I showed you. What you tripping about? That's how we see it, right? That's just the way we logically see it. Whereas a woman like, nah, it ain't just about the movies. It ain't just about that. I want this. But really understanding your mate, where you can communicate with each other. And one thing I learned in my last relationship, she helped me become better because she actually learned me. I'm a very technical guy. So she learned how to communicate to me on the technical side. So it allowed me to be even more honest with her in some things that she wanted out of me. So I think with that being stated, male and female, we got to learn our mates and how can we work in them, whatever it is, to get the information we want out of them, but without just being brutal, harsh, and get to a point, like you said, high divorce rates and everything else that we're doing.
I agree with that too. I believe you need to, know your mate, learn your mate. That's the best way to get that open communication. You feel more comfortable if you know your mate. And when I say no, I mean, you guys sit and just talk about everything. You have to know your mate up and down 100%. You're with each other all day long, 24/7. You need to know this person so they can feel comfortable enough to talk about sensitive situations on both ends. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and I think too, even just with going what Antoinette said at the beginning too, is not only just knowing your mate, but knowing yourself. Probably about a year ago, I did start, seeing a therapist or a counselor. And it's like, I didn't see the patterns of my own relationships. Like, I know what they are. I could probably tell you them, but as far as just diving deep into seeing, okay, you're doing the same thing over and over. Some of the same stuff you're doing at 45 is what you were doing at 35. Some of that is what I was doing at 25, and then what is the foundation of it? And if I want to have a different outcome in my relationships, then I have to know the basis of some of my behaviors and really want that to change. So I think it's also not even just learning your mate, but learning yourself. How do you communicate? Like even with God, a lot of times we do, oh, I need to talk to you later. Oh, shoot. Well,
right. Oh, we lose?
Yeah, it looks like Emma's frozen.
No, I was not.
Oh, okay. Just to give you guys a heads up, we're gonna we have about 9 more minutes on this conversation, and then I think it's important to keep going. So we're gonna go ahead and have you guys sign on again using that link. Well, actually, I have a new link. I'm gonna send it to you so we can continue the discussion. But I definitely think you all made some very good points. I think it goes back. What I heard in this conversation so far is trauma, trust, and respect. Because if you come from a place of trauma, then you're already constantly in a state of hypervigilance. So when someone comes to you and tries to have a conversation, you already have your guards up. You're already ready for battle. And also trust. If I don't trust you, I can't just receive the information that you're giving me because I'm already in my head processing what is the motive of this information. We mentioned dress, and I know that was a huge thing in my relationship where my husband wanted me covered up when I was in public, but then he wanted me to look a different way when I was with him. And so I think that created a situation of, one, do you have the right to try to alter what I'm wearing? Because if I'm an adult and I'm a woman who I respect myself, I'm not going to go out there just looking any kind of way. But am I supposed to? So when I receive that message about what I should wear, it's not coming from a place of I care about you and I'm trying to protect you, but it was more so a control situation. And so my response came accordingly. But I also know, and like I said, through my work, I understand that even though that may have been the situation, that I still have responsibility in that, where I need to have those conversations and express what I'm feeling. And if it's not received, then again, I need to make a choice from there. So, and then also, like I mentioned, respect, it's how you say something to someone. I can receive anything anyone has to say. I'm sure Emeka, Jason, and Crystal can add to that. I can have a hard conversation with and keep my head and be able to process the information. But at any point where I feel like I'm disrespected, then things may change. And so I think that all of those are key. You know, you like you said, you need to know the source. You need to know where that information is coming from, and you need to know the person that you're giving that information to. Are they able to handle it in the way that you're presenting it to them? Because, like I said, I can listen to anything, but if you're yelling at me, if you're in my face, then I'm shutting down.
I'm the same way. I totally shut down. Yelling, anything like that, I can't receive it. I can't, because I feel that I should speak to you in a kind manner. No matter what the situation is, I'm going to respect you, and I expect that in return. And you may be saying something that I may need, but you're yelling. So I'm not, that's going past my head. So I'm not even going to receive that information that you're trying to tell me. So that's really important.
But let me ask you this. At what point did the yelling start? Did the yelling start at the beginning, or did the yelling start when he came to you and may have been like, hey, babe, when you do this, it like really bothers me and everything else. And then it escalated from there based on a response that he got back? Or did he come in yelling?
Well, it didn't start. I won't get into detail, but it didn't start. Everything is all peaches and cream in the beginning. Love bombing and everything in the beginning. It just kind of slowly trickled in. So
we're
it's
talking
like
portion of the conversation. I mean, it just started with trying to express, and then
right, and then that's just seemed like an everyday, type of thing. So now when anyone communicates with me, or even a friendly hello in a DM, I'm like, what do you want? My guard is up from beginning. Now, it could be a nice person, but I'm already triggered. What do you want with me?
Exactly. So, and the reason I brought that up is because now, so now your usual response is what? What do you want? Or a general response. I don't want to say your usual, but a general response to a lot of people in your DMs may be like, what not? What do you want? What? Yeah. Where it used to be, hey, how you doing? No, I can't talk to you. I'm in a relationship, or I'm not free, or whatever.
Yeah.
After you snap at somebody like that a time or two, and other people see you snap at somebody like that a time or two, now as men, when we approach you, we're going to approach you completely different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we might still come in nice, but the minute that you say something snappy back, bang, if they decide to respond again, chances are it's going to probably be on the level of disrespect. Or what I just prefer to do is just ignore the hell out of you and just go on about my business if we're not in a relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I network quite a bit, especially seeing, with me being an actor and a writer, and I network quite a bit. And if I see an attitude or something that I don't like, I try my best just to keep going. But if they keep acknowledging me or coming, or saying whatever, then I'm going to respond, and it's not going to be pleasant, most likely. I'll try to keep it high level if I can, but depending on how they cut, how deep they cut or what they're saying, then we're going to set some limits, on certain things, definitely.
And as for me, it was not to cut you out. It wasn't attitude or anything that I, presented to anybody. But what I'm saying with the DMs or anything, just someone trying to say, hello, how you doing? I don't really tell them, hey, what do you want? I'm saying that in my head. I'll say, hey, how you doing? But in my head, I'm like, what does this person want? Like Antoinette said, what is your motive? I mean, really, these guys are probably just trying to get to know me. But right now, I just have that,
And that's fair. But keep in mind, what you think about subconsciously at some point will still come out.
Eventually. Yeah, you're right.
Because even if you're thinking, oh my God, what does he want? Then you actually do respond, hey, how are you? But I mean, you're going to still be dry.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And see, that's why a lot of times, like when I do verbalize, like I said, I mean, I still feel, Lance, come on, man, you with me. You probably still felt like I did, fellas. It's a trap, even though you was answering and saying a lot of good stuff. And I agree with what you were saying. In the heat of a relationship, or the thick of a relationship, the minute she disagrees with what it is that you're saying, now all of a sudden, now you got a challenge. So the next time you tell this guy, hey, I can see something is bothering you, just open up, just talk to me, be open, be honest and everything else. Well, the last time he opened up and tried to be honest with you and just have a little pillow talk with you, it became something else. Why would he do that again?
Okay, so my question to everybody that was speaking about how the motive and the respect, trust, trauma. And to me, it sounds like you're talking about projecting that person's fears into the conversation. Jason had asked Crystal, at what point does she like shut down? And I think he meant like in the process of the conversation. Like, I think it's like when something you hear triggers you and you're like, okay, for her, it was yelling. So for me, it would be like something you say that would be like, to me, out of like, you have no regard for me, no respect. So that would be me projecting on that person if I were to say they're saying something. Or it could potentially be that they are saying something because they do have these fears. Like, I don't want you to go out dressed like that, because he's projecting his fear of me being snatched up because I look like this. That's something he needs to deal with, not me. So if I dressed like this before I met you, if I dressed like this and this would catch your eye, then why should I have to stop dressing like this? Because it makes you feel insecure? That's a you problem, not a me problem. That's not a us problem. That's not like us moving into a wherever. That's us. Me dressing the way I dress was before you, and it would most likely be after you. So that's what I mean. Like, it's a situation where she has control over it, basically. Her hair, her clothes. And so those are superficial things, but those are projected fears. And the same thing for when we're receiving that information. Those are our perceived fears of what we may think that they're saying. That's my thing.
I have a question. That's one way to look at it. You're definitely not incorrect. I agree with you. The sidebar that I would have to that, and I'm just using your example of maybe the way that you're dressed. And you're right. He may have met you dressed a particular way. He may have met you when you was carrying yourself a particular way that, see, how do I say this? When he met you, you may have been carrying yourself in a way that he may not have been looking for an actual serious relationship at first. I think I said that in a nice way. He may have been looking for something just physical, and then after y'all may have done whatever y'all done, hung out, realize that you're a lot deeper than that, and you're a lot better than that, and you're going somewhere, et cetera, et cetera. And when you go out, there might be a particular way that you carry yourself when you're around your girls or your friends or whoever you go out with. So it may not necessarily be him scared that he's going to lose you per se, or try to control what it is that you wear. It could also be from the standpoint of maybe the way that you're carrying yourself. He knows the type of dog that you're going to attract, and he might be trying to keep you from potentially catching fleas, if you know what I'm saying. You know, getting raped or getting assaulted or whatever the case may be. So it goes much deeper than just a control factor. I mean, it might be based on the way that you previously carried yourself. I mean, it can go a lot deeper than that, you know? But like I said, you're definitely not incorrect. Yes, there are a lot of guys that do have control issues, or people, I should say, adults.
What?
In regards to control issues, that would be a him thing, where the individual has no control over themselves. And it's not even if what I wore, when I wore it, how I wore it, why I wore it, would have anything to do with his response to what he perceived me to be. I'm on my way to work. I've had stalkers. I have gotten chased into work in my dressed apparel for work. And I do not dress like a hoe going to work. So that does not work. I've walked down the sidewalk in a sundress and then approached as if I was working. So that does not equate. It does not work. So it's a him thing, not a me thing. So no matter what I wear or where I wear it, his intentions, his feelings, his thoughts, whatever it is with him, has nothing to do with me. So that don't work. That's a projecting thing. That's, again, like, so each situation is different. And for me, from my own personal experience, like I said, going into work and being followed off of the train, I waited to the last second till the doors closed before that person hopped up and ran off the train right before me, because I knew that person had an issue. I could tell by looking at him, looking at me the way he was looking at. So I waited to the last second before the doors closed before I ran off the train. He ran off the train right behind me, and I walked real fast and I could see in the glass. him walking behind me. And the closer he got, I started walking faster. And the faster I started walking, the closer I got to the door. When I got in the door, I shot off to the back of the reception desk where the security guard at. And he told the dude to leave and had the police come take a report. So that don't work. So that has to do with him and how he feels and what his fears are. You can't control what people are going to do and how they're going to react to what you're doing at any point in time. So in the process of communicating, you can't put your you-ness on them and make them responsible for how you feel about that subject. That's a part of her accepting the truth. You have to be honest with yourself. Why am I saying this?
So y'all responding, is this like after you date, I mean, after you're married or after your relationship, or this is while dating, like some of these responses? I'm trying to get an understanding, like,
I'm talking about just while dating. I mean, I'm not even talking about while married. I mean, of course, those conversations,
right. So
marriage and stuff. But no, I mean, even while dating, I mean, yes, I've seen people and had friends who feel like Miss Shani feels right here. But I also know where some of these guys were coming from because I've been out and seen some of these young ladies, you know what I mean? So that's why I said what it is that I said. And I mean, and just understand, Shani, crazy people are going to crazy people. They're going to do what they do. I mean, I can sit here, be covered in grass, go get some fuel for my lawnmower and get hit on at the damn gas station, you know, being covered in grass, smelling like a yard. You know what I mean? So if somebody decided they like you, go ahead and laugh because I'm being for real. You know, so I'm sitting here literally covered in grass, all hair everywhere. And they kind of like, hey, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking you smell like outdoors.
Exactly. Outdoors,
Smell like outside.
mud, grass, everything else, especially when I'm cutting this yard over here where I stay now. But like I said, crazy people are going to crazy people. And if people decided they like you, you know, I mean, that sounded like hopefully that was an isolated incident. But I was talking more or less, I mean, just from someone going out, I mean, just giving a different perspective. But yeah, I mean, it may have been a control thing, but it also may have been a thing to where now that he cares about you, he knows what's out there. He knows how you carry yourself and how that might be perceived when you're out having fun away from him and sometimes even with him.
Or
and that reason why, you know, he's saying certain things.
Or you got to be careful as a man, because when you start to point out those things like that, now you're creating change.
Correct.
And you want to change. But now understand, when you go ahead and take it a little further, she's like, hey, I don't like this about you. I don't like that about you. Now you're opening that door. Because who that person is, you got to respect who that person is. That goes for male or female. I'm not changing for nobody. Like, I understand you got to learn how to compromise some things. Like, I like to play dominoes all the time. Like, I compromise my domino time, right? But who I am as a man, there's certain things about me that's just not going to change. And it's some things about a woman that's not going to change. And you just got to accept them for who they are and learn how to deal with them and who they are, that person. So, I mean, I understand where y'all coming from with the different points of views, but at the end of the day, it's about respecting who that person is. And,
absolutely.
And you're going to learn them. You have to learn them. Because a lot of times we'll step into something and make it, and all folks say all the time, we'll step into something and make it a lifetime when it's supposed to be a season. To jump into that thing. And instead of just walking away from it. But we continue to like, you know what? She really don't be cooking like, I like her cooking. But you know what? That'll change over time. She don't really clean, how my mama used to clean. The house was clean. But you know what? It'll change over time, right? But over time, it never happens because you got to accept that person for who they are. So that's my point on that.
Yeah, and I think too, even just with changing, because I know in some relationships or some dating relationships that I've had, it's like, earlier you said something about, okay, we can be talking about superficial things, but are we going to be talking about parenting styles? Are we going to be talking about this? And it's like even dating women who have children, sometimes that's a tight rope that's hard to maneuver too, or in whatever the change is too. I think it has to become personal. Like you said, they might be wanting to change they dress. Are they changing because they're in this relationship, or they changing because they want that change for themselves as well? And I think like I've dated somebody, they don't really attend church. It's like, I'll start going to church. Are you starting to go to church because you want to be with me? Or are you starting to want to go to church because you value in it for yourself and what you need? Because then when you start changing for the other person, then that's where, the occasion or you're not really being true to what it is that you want. And you're not really changing because you see the value in changing. You're get to stay in this relationship or to be with this particular person. And I think that's definitely not, not the way to go about it.
I agree, because no matter what, at some point you're going to resort or revert back to what it was that you was doing in the first place. And now you open up a whole another can of worms. I mean, let's just be honest with each other. Using your example, if it's the church thing and I'm not really a church goer or they're not a church goer or whatever, and you're an avid church goer, as far as I'm concerned, if y'all go on a date, then just don't prevent me from going. You know what I'm saying? If that's not your ministry, then that's fine. But don't act like you're gonna keep me in the bed or whatever. Like, I like going to the racetrack and stuff. If there's a race going on and my wife may not always want to go, as long as I get up at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm headed to the racetrack. Don't try to hold me in the bed. Get the hell out the way. Let me go do what I'm about to go do. And that way, when I come home, we're peaceful and good to see you again. You know what I mean? But I don't care what it is. Like Lance said, I mean, if you're trying to change, and also, did I say your name right? Emeka?
Yes.
Okay.
Emeka.
Like what you actually ended up saying is, like, if you're changing to satisfy someone else, you're still going to feel empty. And at some point, you're going to revert back to what it was that you were doing in the first place. If you're changing because of growth, then that change should stick. You know what I'm saying? But if you're just changing to please someone else, you're just opening yourself up for another challenge. In my opinion.
You're also opening yourself to having resentment for the other person because you made changes that you didn't really want for yourself. You made it because of them. At least you felt like you made it because of them, because it would keep things peaceful. And that's where the men don't say something. And they choose their battles, they say, so that they don't have to, have that fight and then end up having to, or feel like they have to change this or not go here and not do this to satisfy her, to prevent this argument from happening going forward or what have you. Or him hiding things so that he doesn't have to tell her what he's doing so that they don't have this argument. And, he can still live his life as an individual because he wants to be who he was before her, but listen to how he wants to help her change. But I'm just saying, that's what I would say about situations like that.
I agree with you, because in dating, in my professional career, everything that I do on entrepreneurial, I'll be cordial, but I don't really have a representative. So and Lance can tell you, he's known me for years. How I am is pretty much how you're going to see me the first time that you meet me. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of us go wrong in relationships as well, as we show up with this representative because we're trying to impress that person. As far as I'm concerned, let some of that crazy fly in the beginning. You know what I mean? Let some of that fly and see if they can actually deal with it. Or, case in point, I have a tendency to curse. I'm not cursing a whole bunch on, when I'm doing this, but in my usual life, I have a tendency to curse. When I'm talking to you, I'm going to let some of them words fly. And if I see you cringing and everything, you may not be the person for me. I don't know, or we may need to have a different type of conversation. There's a level of realness that we're going to go, because as I go real deep, certain words will come out. So like I said, that you can take that and pretty much go anywhere with it. But at the end of the day, I think there's a level of accountability that needs to be had no matter what. If you ask somebody to express themselves to you, if they're saying something, and I heard several of the ladies say this, that, at some point might be triggering, instead of having something to say, especially since you asked them to speak to you and be open with you, I just think that you should listen and see where they're going to land that plane. You know what I mean? Because it may sound very triggering at first, but they may have used an example to get to where it is that they're trying to go. And if you get caught up on that example and you start being combative with that, then the point may have probably never gotten made. You know what I'm saying? And this is relationship just one-on-one. If you're not communicating effectively with each other and listening to what each other has to say, and you're looking for the response, then you're going to miss that point. And then if you burn him that time or two, granted, he's probably not going to go there with you again, unless the stuff hits the fan. And when it hits the fan, it's like what Miss Crystal was talking about. Now you're yelling, well, what is it? Just talk to me. Just talk to me. Just talk to me. Damn it, woman, look, hey, you know what I'm saying? Now you get that response. as opposed to, look, baby, when you did this the other day, it really bothered me. Is there something we can do differently, maybe, to try to, figure this out, or what, I don't know. Like I said, it just becomes a different handling it. And that's one of the things I don't see in a lot of modern relationships is accountability. I mean, I have another friend that I do podcasts with all the time. And that's one of the things that we have a tendency when we get to talking about our friends and associates and the things that they're going through. A lot of times it's a lack of accountability and either wanting to hear the message, agreeing with the message, or who are you to tell me, whatever. It's like, you did ask me how I felt about it. Now I told you, and all of a sudden now I got to run for cover. So like I said, I mean, there needs to be a sense of responsibility and accountability, especially if you're going to ask somebody to open up to, because you may not like to say.
I can, if I can piggyback on that, you're right, accountability. I heard, I was watching YouTube one day and at Pastor Stephen F. But he said something that was real. He said a lot of times we have unmet expectations due to unspoken expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when he said, I'm like, well, dang, that is true, right? A lot of times that we got a certain idea in our mind of what we want. And we never speak it because somewhere out there, somebody told somebody else that we're able to read brains on the male and the female side, right? And we can read each other's mind, and that's not true. So that when he said unmet expectations are due to unspoken expectations, it's reality. Because a lot of times we have certain things out there that we don't speak, and we got to learn how to speak out more about, and not be. You both of you said a word earlier, fear. The biggest time we don't speak out because of fear, and then the acronym for fear, false emotions appearing real. So a lot of us choose not to speak out because we think something. If we say it to our mate, there's going to be this response. It ain't even happened yet. But we won't speak it because there's a fear created that it's going to happen. And versus just being blunt and honest, let's just talk about this, right? I don't care if you ain't going to like me tonight. I don't care if I got to go ahead and sleep on the floor. You sleep on the bed. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, you find a way to talk to each other and communicate with each other. So that's just, we got to get out of fear.
Oh, I agree. And that's probably why I have limited friends and stuff like that as well, because I'm not necessarily slight of tongue myself. So, I mean, I figure if you decided you're going to leave me, hell, I was the only child any damn way. So it's like, I can get along with myself. So I ain't one of those type of people. So I'll go ahead and say my piece and then we'll just deal with it from there. But I agree with you 100%, sir.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, a lot of these situations probably could. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier. When you think about high school, college, those that went to college, there's no courses on finances, and there definitely no courses on relationships. Those are two of the things that are really important once you become an adult. And they don't have no courses or anything out there to teach you how to deal with people, how to deal with being in a relationship with whoever you're going to be in a relationship with, how money works, none of that. And I think that's something that needs to start being introduced in middle school, in high schools, in college. Because once you turn 24, 25, you're kind of stuck in who you are. And now you want me to go ahead and start learning this person. But if I'd have been learning different ways to interact with people, maybe the outcome might be better.
Yeah, I think you make a very important, you had something to say, Shawnee?
I was gonna say, before you can learn anybody else, you gotta learn yourself first.
Facts.
Right.
That's the first thing you gotta do. You can't help nobody else, so you can help yourself first. Like understanding yourself emotionally, understanding yourself financially, understanding what what your deficits and traumas are, and how you've had to overcome them, so that you can. So each one reach one. After as a result of you learning yourself first. Thank you.
Right. I think you guys all made some very interesting points. As you were talking, I was processing. We started this conversation with, do women really want to hear what men have to say, or do we want honest communication? And I don't even think that's the point now. I think the point is because we can kind of dig our feet in the ground and stand firm to, yes, we want to hear it. You can stand firm and no, you really don't want to hear it. But I think the greater point is what James said with identifying more so, what do we need from each other? How do we heal from our hurts and pains so that we can effectively behave in relationships or participate, engage in relationships? And also, how do we break the cycle? Because again, we could go on for days, about this topic, but how do we change things? How do we move forward? And I believe that we have to communicate, effectively, and we have to be open so that we can even address the problem. You have to know the problem so you can address it. So my question is, how do we move forward? How do women receive the information that they need to hear from their men? How will men become comfortable to openly share what they need and what they want in relationships and not participate in the fear or be succumbed by the fear of how the woman will react?
You said, what was that question one more time?
Therapy.
Amen to therapy. You're right. Therapy is key. Matter of fact, instead of giving out stipends, they should be giving out therapy stipends.
Yeah.
Everybody needs therapy. Everybody got issues, and it's all right. We all got issues.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, I think that's key. We all have to deal with our issues. We all need to do the work so that we can be the person that we need to be in the relationship. And like Jason said before, so that we stop sending our representatives and we start sending our true selves. So my question was, where do we go from here? How do we change this so that we decrease the divorce rate, and so that we have marriages in place and family units, because that again is affecting not only us, but it's affecting our children. And so where do we need to go from here, essentially, is the question. What do we need to do different?
That's a good question. It's a very broad question. So much work to do. Like when you say, where do we go? Like, how do you get self-help therapy, right? Once you get self together, the next step would be, what could man do? What could woman do? And the only way you're going to grow self, your brain is a sponge. You have to either read, or we have YouTube. You have to start taking in different things that's going to help you grow mentally, help you to understand outside of yourself. So after you understand yourself, I would say you have to set up men, break down what men need to do and what women need to do. Break that out. And then people will have to be willing to even step outside of that boundary to want the help. Because a lot of men, like, I'm good who I am. I ain't doing none of that. Versus going to men groups like, hey, man, so you talking crazy to your wife the other day, man. You might want to come to this group, man, because you probably can talk to a little different. But just stepping outside the boundaries.
And I think even with that too, even just being an educator or being in the school system, like you said, starting young, one of the things I do with my boys group is we have a activity called the man box. And, all of these things are what society, music, whatever says a man is. And if you step outside that box, then normally you're called something derogatory, and it's like, excuse me, how do we teach our young men to be able to express themselves? Because a lot of times I think even as young children, it's okay for women to express themselves, for young girls to express themselves. And for men, especially on an emotional side, we don't really give them a safe space. So it's practice behavior years and years and years. And now here we are, 25, 35, and you want us to express our feelings. Right. When we haven't been able to do it for the last 20 years, in a safe space. So it definitely starts, at a young age. And we have to be open to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I need to change. And these patterns that I have need to change if I absolutely want something different.
I agree with what you're saying. I'll piggyback off of that. One of the things, and I even wrote about this, I was asked to remove it. I wrote about it, and then I did my Abe Lincoln, thought about it, and actually removed it. But it's basically, I agree with you, a safe space, especially on the man's side, to communicate effectively, because you got to think through the 80s and even some of the early 90s and stuff, you had this movement where they was telling men, well, be more emotional, get in touch with your feminine side, talk more, express yourself, this, that, and the other. And now we're in the 2000s and the 2020s. And then you got women who are so strong now to where when these men do try to express themselves, you just sound like a little punk. You need to man up, this, that, and the other. So now y'all know, some of y'all with a little age on you, I'm telling the truth. It's a catch-22, because I used to mentor high school boys for several years in the past at a local church here. And it's amazing that for years we focused on making our women so much stronger, and a lot of times the boys ended up getting forgotten about. And I'm saying that because a lot of the young men, they were 14, well, mostly 15 through 17, but some 14-year-olds, some 18-year-olds, mostly 15 through 17 high school boys, 2-year program. And even after the first year of just doing Circle Up, some of these young men, their posture was in Circle Up with the same boys, the same mentors. You ask them their name, what school they're from, and everything else, they're looking down at their name badge. You see what I mean? And I would bring my daughters sometimes. I was a facilitator. I would bring my daughters. And here it is. I'm raising my daughters to be strong and understand game, this, that, and the other. And at the end of that, at the time, my daughters are like 10. My oldest one, now she's in college. And I was like, what do you think about that? Because they would just say their name. They didn't think about it. They weren't nervous. They weren't anything else. They would just say their name. Now, here it is, a safe space for these young men, and they're still having challenges communicating. You know what I mean? 20, 30 years after the whole, get in touch with your feminine side, express yourself stuff, they're still having a hard time communicating. You know what I mean? So I agree with that. There definitely needs to be a safe space. There definitely needs to be programs to where we actually start building our young men back up. We've worked so hard on the young ladies, and trust me, y'all are strong. I love it. But now a lot of our young men have gone to the wayside, and a lot of y'all are complaining, well, they're not stepping up. Well, if you're a single mom and your son not stepping up, then that's as well. Like I said, it has to be accountability. It ain't always just because of the man, because like he just said, we got men's programs where we're actually reaching back and trying to pull these young men up and these kids up and get them to have that posture that we need. But there's a lot more that needs to be done. And that's why almost any podcast you ever hear me on, I'm always talking about accountability, and making sure that, you have that responsibility as well, because if you don't have a safe space for him to express himself, I guarantee you, he's going to express himself. It just ain't going to be with you. You'll still be where you are, and either he's going to express himself to another woman or he's going to express himself to his buddies. But either way it goes, there's going to be a void in your relationship if there's not a safe space for him to express himself and not be looking forward to a fight coming from it.
Yeah, I totally agree. As I said before, this topic is much deeper than just the communication piece or what women will do or don't want to hear. It's all about, again, identifying that trauma. Lance made a good point earlier about the love language, the 5 love languages.
Mm-hmm.
Once we know our love language, and once we require our love language, and we know the other person's, and we're open to give, I think we'll make great gains. And so, I guess the message for the day, as we go ahead and wrap this up, I believe there's a lot of work to do, and I think it starts here with this conversation, with this dialogue. And the reality is, I can't go to Crystal and Shawnee and talk to them about what women want and why men are the way that they are. I need to open that dialogue with males, and I think we need to do that with each other, because if we're just with the same sex trying to figure out what the other sex wants, we'll never figure this out. But I think
frustration.
Right. I think we have to be open. Number one, I think we have to continue the dialogue. I think we have to set examples. Like you said, it's not all about men giving boys what they need. Women have to give the boys what they need as well. And unfortunately, we're in a situation where a lot of women are out here raising boys alone. And so I think it's also important that we step up into those mentor roles and so that we give those young men what they need as well. So we definitely have a long way to go, and I think we have to continue to have these conversations. I think, I really hate to end this conversation, but I know we all have to be at work in the morning, and we have to put our kids to bed and all of that. But I do want to open the door to come back later and continue this discussion, because I think we touched on a lot of different things here. And I think we need to dig a little deeper into those things. And hopefully we can start the conversation, and we can share this message on what needs to change with others. And so maybe we can be a part of that process for change. Okay, any closing words?
Well, I'm not shy. I just want to say thank y'all for the opportunity to speak. I know at times I will run my mouth a little long, so if I ever get a little long-winded, just give me the little message to shorten it, because I do get a little passionate when it comes to relationships, because a lot of times I just notice people don't want to truly talk about it. They just want to skirt around the fact and just kind of stick to their own feelings. But we need to be open to other people's feelings as well, and understanding, of what they've been through. So I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to having it again.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it as well.
I definitely enjoyed it. I think like you said, you're on something big. The market age group is definitely in the 30s to the 50 range. I would say maybe even past 50, of individuals, like you said, women and men that really want to know insight. Because you got a lot of men that want to know, like, why she acting crazy, what I'm doing wrong. So definitely having that something like this that they can listen to and pay attention to and get insight that can possibly help them. So it's cool. Thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you as well. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the time with you guys. It was fun. I learned a lot from you guys. It's really interesting.
No, and I'll just say thank you for you guys, joining us. Definitely, Chainbreakers, we started it around mental health issues, but and this is just one of those topics too. It's like we have to break these chains that are binding us in our relationships. The traumas that we have, past relationships, stuff that we're carrying, forward into new relationships. And one way is having, these open dialogues, honest dialogues, and just, we can only break these chains, by facing our truths. And so just thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.